Welcome to Shruti Out Loud.
Hello.
Hello.
Yes.
Hi, sir. Shruti this side.
Yeah. Good evening, Shruti.
Good evening, sir. How are you?
I am good, Shruti. Everything fine.
How is Mumbai doing because of all the cyclone and everything? Are things all right there?
Yeah, it's been a torrid time actually.
Uh-huh.
Initially we started with this COVID relief activity.
Right.
In fact, our focus was primarily with the municipal schools. We were implementing
Mm-hmm.
projects in municipal schools,
Mm-hmm.
and then suddenly there was this lockdown in March,
Right.
and then the COVID relief activity started from April onwards.
Uh-huh. Okay.
And so we got busy with COVID relief again, and that was the need of the hour as well.
Absolutely.
So we just went on with that, and then UNICEF, being an urban partner of UNICEF,
Mm-hmm.
we got together and we started this initiative of Jeevan Rath, which was basically talking about providing safe and dignified passage to migrants who were
Right.
leaving Mumbai.
Right.
So
Right.
so it has been a very hectic time, and then again there was this cyclone thing,
Absolutely. Yeah.
and so it was very chaotic in fact. So in fact, the work from home activity has increased the workload much
Yeah, that's
more
so
as
true.
compared
That's
to
absolutely true.
physical work when we implement our projects, basically.
Absolutely. I totally agree
Yeah.
with you on this that, work from home, it's not just about the work, but obviously personal and professional, everything is going hand in hand and it's more of the workload when you really think about it.
Absolutely, Shruti. Absolutely.
Right. So,
Yeah.
sir, first of all, I would like to thank you for agreeing to be a part of Shruti Out Loud and, basically helping us out in creating awareness and inspiring people to follow their passions and their basically the whole idea of Shruti Out Loud is to inspire people to follow the path that they really want to be on and do things that they really want to do and be a part of the society and help sort of to create a better world. So I genuinely
Yes.
want to thank you for agreeing to be here and in this conversation.
I think it's a very good initiative, Shruti. I mean, it's very important. I mean, the message reaches out loud and clear because I think a lot of people like us, in fact, I also come from the professional sector and, many people would like to do good things and, do something towards social cause and towards society. But
Right.
then there's a lot of, motivation is lacking or non-clarity, in the objectives. So sometimes it becomes difficult to start. So let's say I was fortunate to get a platform, a few years back, and
Mm-hmm.
that's how I just carried on with the whole thing till I decided to register my own non-profit organization in 2013.
Right.
Yeah. So it's a good initiative, Shruti. I think
Thank you, sir.
it's a very good way of reaching out to people and encouraging them to do their bit.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. And, before really starting the conversation about the whole topic, I would like to tell our listeners, tell our audience a bit about you. And so in today's episode, we have Mr. Nitin Vadwani, who is the founder and director of Citizens Association for Child Rights. So without wasting another second, without wasting another minute, sir, could you tell us a bit about yourself?
Yes, Shruti. First of all, thanks for inviting me on this chat. And basically, I worked as a professional for almost 34 years.
Okay.
We were having a family, owned organization in the
Mm-hmm.
business of electronic components.
All right.
And I was a director in one of the organizations. We were into trading of industrial electronic components,
All right.
which also made me travel all over the world. In fact, we had suppliers from Europe and Far East, and
Mm-hmm.
I used to interact with all the big corporates like the DHLs and the Larsen and Toubro, Siemens, etc. So I had this experience of dealing with corporates and the government organizations for many years.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, about let's say 13, 14 years back,
Uh-huh.
there was this constant feeling within me that can I do something which I want to do? Like I wanted to do something in the social sector, but I was not clear honestly what to do and where do I start.
Hmm.
So being a very small donor at that time to, one of the very good organizations known as Child Rights NU, CRY, which I think
Right.
almost everybody has heard about,
Uh-huh.
one of the very good NGOs. So being a small donor to CRY, I got an opportunity from them to attend one of the, donor programs, where they wanted to highlight the work they were doing.
Uh-huh.
That gave me a chance to interact with some of their program managers and, people who were actually working at the ground level
All right.
and interacting with NGOs. So after a brief chat with them, they offered me that, sir, why don't you come and give us some time?
Mm-hmm.
And being a professional, I used to travel almost 15, 20 days in a month. So
Okay.
the first question with most of the professionals and working people and business community is that question of availability of time, when you're fully involved.
Right.
But at the back of the mind, something was all the time, pricking me that I should be doing something. And so I said, okay, if there's something on the weekend, let me come and participate. And
Okay.
that's how it started, the journey that we started working with the street children, on the payments of khar.
All
When
right.
I said street children, they were selling merchandise. They were this gajra making community, making these gajras on the street. You will even find them today, on the payments of khar. So we used to, have a team of volunteers who
Okay.
used to go every weekend, get the children to a neighborhood school. The school was very generous enough to give us a space in the school
Uh-huh.
where the children were taught basic hygiene, some little bit of education, drawing, this, that, and we used to give them biscuits and some, cookies, etc., and, something like that, just to encourage them to come and spend that few hours with us,
Right.
But when I saw that, I was still not very happy. I mean, I somehow something kept on telling me that, is this what I want to do? So till one of the young volunteers, Rani, I still remember her name, she came and told me, sir, you are the senior person in the group. We need your help.
Okay.
I said, please tell me. And she told me that we want to send the children to the school,
Mm-hmm.
but the parents are quite adamant. Parents want the children to be there with them throughout the day because then they sell the merchandise. They are a source of income for them, basically.
Right.
So that, I just got taken back a bit when I heard that statement. I said, now this looks to be a challenging task.
Uh-huh.
So it took me almost 3 months, continuously 3 months, every Sunday afternoon after my lunch. I used to literally go to those payments of khar and sit with them, actually with them on the mat.
Oh, wow.
And I used to understand the background, from where they came from. They were from Sangli, Kolhapur and all that belt, They were there for many, many years, 20 years, 25 years. Families kept on expanding.
Wow.
You see, one thing which struck me that time, that the poorer the family, the larger it is. And it was always giving me that how do they afford to have this large family? But then for them, every extra hand was a source of income for them. Basically,
Right.
That's the thought process when you deal with them, basically.
More hands and more
Yeah,
basically.
more hands, so more income. So somebody will be selling something, somebody will be doing something, somebody will be working somewhere, And
Right.
so this thought process, it took me some time, but after 3 months of continuous visits, these families, about 20 odd families, they were finally convinced. They said, sir, you are coming to us every week
Uh-huh.
and you're not even asking us to do something. So what is your intention, basically?
Okay.
So I told them, I have only one intention, that I want your children not to go on the streets. They should be in the school.
Uh-huh.
That was my only request with them. They said,
Right.
sir, you've come for such a long time, we will listen to you. So what do you want us to do? So the trust element was built, during this communication. And then on a Monday morning, I called our team of volunteers with CRY. And then we walked around to a neighborhood municipal school just less than 500 meters from that spot. And I told the parents that you must accompany us because ultimately it is your responsibility that children should go to the school. We are just facilitating the whole process.
Right.
So once entering the school, I had a chat, started talking to the headmaster, teachers, just to understand what exactly is the education system offering, what is the municipal school offering. I could see that the schools were not, up to the mark with respect to infrastructure or even the look of it, So it was quite dismal, in fact, when I started 13, 14 years back, 12 years back. It was quite dismal. I was myself getting a bit disturbed at how is the school looking so drab and dull, how will the children enjoy when they come to the school. But anyway, having got into the system, I started gathering a lot of information by talking to the headmaster, teachers,
Okay.
This thing kept on going till I realized that let me get more information from the department per se. What exactly is the government schooling system? So this curiosity, took me from one point to the other and obviously different level of interaction. till I came to a point where CRY told me that, Nitin, we want to start an initiative where citizens like you
Okay.
can discuss and meet and not only create awareness but also start talking to the government, basically the municipal corporation, on how we can improve the accountability in the system, how we can improve the education system, healthcare system, etc. And that's how that took me to some resident associations, welfare associations in Khar. Started meeting people, discussing with them. Initial response was very, very slow. Like if I used to talk to 50 or 100 people at a time,
Right.
there was, at that point of time, everybody was patting your back. Listen, it's a wonderful thing you're sharing with us. Good job. But when it came to supporting the initiative,
Yeah.
I did not see much involvement as such.
This response was a bit lukewarm.
Yeah, lukewarm. And then still it was in the development mode, I was still not 100% clear about what I'm going to ask for.
Right.
It was just evolving at that point of time. So probably lack of clarity and lack of purpose. Like, what am I trying to achieve? That was the question. So that's how, but thankfully I could manage to get one person, and then one person took me to 10 more people, and slowly the network grew. And in fact, we had a very good, team of people, including Mr. Shailesh Gandhi, who was the former Chief Information Commissioner. And, we had a network of very good people from Santa Cruz, Bandra, Aftab Siddiqui, and Vidya Vaidya, Neena Kaura, so many people. I mean, I just can't, you can count the names. Now, this network, we started interacting with the BMC Education Department at the ward level.
All right.
Okay. Just to understand. And in the meantime, I started increasing my visit to the municipal schools.
Okay.
Just to understand that, okay, what is the condition today? How many children were enrolled at this point of time? What was the data 2 years back, 3 years back? And it came to my surprise that, over the few years, the enrollment kept on dwindling in these schools,
Okay.
And now that was a cause of worry, because on one side, we were talking about free education given by the government. Then I started looking at all the facilities and amenities being given to the children. So then I realized, children are getting school bags, children are getting uniforms, children are getting so many things from the department, but not many people in the outside world knew about this. Okay. When I say outside world, means I'm talking about the community which is not sending the children to the municipal schools anymore. Okay. We're talking about the middle class families, the upper middle class families, where even a maid servant who can afford to spend a few thousand rupees still prefers to send the child to a private school and not to the municipal school.
Right.
So obviously the concern was not there, basically. In fact, I was a little bit shocked when I even spoke to some media. The moment media started talking to me, and they knew that I am really aggressively working on the municipal school system.
Right.
So the media also was, looking at the negatives to be highlighted. And I was not happy, honestly. I mean, with due respect to the media, I mean, they definitely want to showcase the problems as well, but there was hardly any positives being covered in the system. So the question was, are there any positives in the system? So that's how I started getting more into the detail and depth of the BMC Education Department to understand what are the challenges, what are the problems. And the worst part was that, at that point of time, the municipal corporation budget was about 900 or 1,000 crores, and there were almost 6 lakh children in the schools. Over a period of 7 to 8 years down the line, the budget went to 2.5 times, almost 2,300, 2,400 crores.
Right.
And the number today has gone down to less than 3 lakh children.
Okay.
You got the point. So basically, on one side, your budget is increasing. On the other side, your number is going down.
Right.
So ultimately, the question is how and why. And, ultimately, at the end of the day, all our budgets are finally taxpayer money, right?
Right.
Even my children may not be going to the municipal school, but at least the taxpayer money which I am paying, you are paying, everyone is paying, that is probably, going somewhere which is not where it is not expected to. It's not really being utilized well the way it should be.
Right.
So that's how we got more and more concerned. I started talking to people. We started going to the education department. I somehow became the front face of all these discussions in the education department. Like
Okay.
I used to interact with the education officers, the deputy officers, and I was trying to actually meet a lot of officials to understand the problems and the challenges.
Uh-huh.
The feeling was that, remaining outside the system and criticizing it or complaining about it or talking loud and saying that there's corruption and there's no accountability and all, it's not very difficult.
Right.
But getting into the system and understanding the challenges on both the sides
Uh-huh.
is much more challenging, I would say. And then without knowing and understanding that, it is very easy to just point a finger.
I totally agree. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
then I realized that, BMC's education department, they have the most qualified teachers. They are very well paid, the 6-day commission and all those things. They are getting very handsome salaries.
Absolutely.
Then what is the reason? I mean, 70% is the minimum requirement for a teacher, the B.Ed qualifications with 70% passing marks is the minimum requirement for a teacher to get a job in the BMC.
Uh-huh.
Okay. So all those things together, then the challenges which the department was facing, of course, the whole system is so bureaucratic, there is so many hierarchy of the people that every decision is taken by, 5 to 6 people have to
Right.
really go through the
So many
document.
levels. Yeah.
The process is very long actually, and decision making is painfully slow.
Uh-huh.
But then I decided, let me keep on going after this and understanding. So
Okay.
it took me some time, but then at least the base was formed, at that point of time. And I decided, so that's how my journey with CRY helped me for almost 5-6 years. I was like, managing the show of interacting with citizens, going to municipal schools, working with volunteers and, reaching out to people. I must have spoken to thousands and thousands of people. Like even I used to get calls from even one person from, let's say, Thana, and I was working in Mahim that time. In the evening after office hours, I used to drive down to Thana to meet that one person to just have a coffee with that person and talk about the municipal schools. So that was the type of interaction. But then I could manage to, meet a lot of people and very good people I met along the way. Everybody encouraged me, motivated me, and that kept on going, And so somehow in 2013, I decided that, a lot of things need to be done. And I decided, let me chart out my own way, basically, in managing the system, Because when you work with a larger organization, there are already protocols and team of people working there. And with due respect to them, they have certain guidelines and policies. So I said, okay, let me also now venture out and see what I can do at my level, So then that's how this Citizens Association for Child Rights idea was started in 2013.
Okay. All right.
I continued to be professionally involved that time, and obviously we didn't have money in the NGO at that point of time. So it was purely voluntary work, A lot of citizens came in, they said, okay, sir, we'll teach computers to children in municipal schools.
Wow, that's amazing, yeah.
So we'll do our bit because, when I used to go to the schools, I used to see that the computers were available in the school, lying in the corner in one of the rooms. There were no teachers who were trained to use computers themselves, to forget about the children getting some knowledge of computers. Thankfully, in 2013-14, and thanks to Mr. Shailesh Gandhi also, being a former IIT alumni, he connected us to IIT, which had the free open source software. That was the LibreOffice, which was the parallel to the Microsoft Office. And they were very happy to associate with us. And, residents gave them a task that, every few kilometers, every couple of kilometers, there's a municipal school. As per the Right to Education Act, the municipal schools are supposed to be within the vicinity of the community, less than 3 kilometers, let's say, from any community. So there should be a school available for the children. Yeah, that's the RTE clause, basically.
Right.
So BMC has 1,100 schools across Mumbai.
Okay.
So 1,100 schools housed in about 475 buildings.
Wow.
So basically, when you say a BMC school, and if you talk about one building, so if in a building you have let's say, a Hindi medium, a Marathi medium, and an English medium school, then they are considered same building.
Okay.
You got the point. So there's a separate headmaster and separate team of people working in the school.
Right.
So that's how we started looking at educating children first on computers, teaching them basic computers, how to use the keyboard, etc. And then slowly the thought was that let's also start working with the teachers and training of teachers.
Okay.
Because teachers were used to doing mechanical manual work, all documentation was manual, all registers, inputs, records, everything was maintained manually.
Right.
It was a very cumbersome process, and government documentation is not easy. I have seen those documents and it was quite crazy. So in fact, computerization was very, very essential at that point of time also. And then we had the National Digital Literacy Mission which came in, which said that every household should have a computer literate person. But whereas we could see that the municipal schools did not really have that type of a facility by way of infrastructure, hardware, and training.
Right.
Okay. So that was the challenge we started in 2013, where we didn't have any money. We started with zero income, no revenue, basically. Our own money was there. And thankfully some time, very valuable time of our volunteers who came in. And they spread the word. We started talking about it to people. The media started covering it a bit, and then it kept on, motivating and galvanizing us into doing more and more things. That's how the organization started, and I used to be professionally busy. Till 2018 as well, I was like, one leg in the professional field and one in the NGO sector. I was not happy, honestly, at that time. My heart was here, but my physical presence was there. It was a very difficult choice for me. But in 2018, I took a very strong decision and I said, now I need to come out and give full time if I need to really take this forward in a proper professional manner. So now with all that experience of 34, 35 years from the professional sector, dealing with government organizations, with corporates, etc., I started utilizing the same, efforts and experience into managing the non-profit organization. And today, thankfully, we have reached a stage where we are the partners of UNICEF, which is very, very, very prestigious for us. And we work with Tata Trust. We get support from public sector undertakings like ONGC. We get support from BPCL. We have some private partners like Viacom 18 gave us a very big project. So we are grateful. I mean, the work, kept on increasing, and we thankfully received a lot of support and encouragement from many corporates, many organizations, and that has really helped us to grow, both by way of knowledge as well as because I'm not from the social sector, basically. I'm just a graduate in science with a background in electronics, basically. No experience or no such qualifications. So it was just that feeling which has driven me to this level that I decided that I must run the NGO now in a proper manner. And so it's going on. So it's just going on now. And thankfully, by grace of God, we are growing. We are doing well. We have a nice small team of people. So we do a lot of projects in municipal schools.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Wow, sir, everything that you have said so far, the journey so far, it is absolutely so inspiring to see that, this is from my understanding that, possibly this was the purpose of your life, because you were looking for something and then finally you found this path through CRY, and then from there on you just kept building on it, and it just led you to a beautiful place where you are today, and you are actually contributing so much to the society, to the world, to make the world a better place for children. And I think there's nothing more inspiring than that, and all of this just came from the fact that you just decided to go ahead with it. And I think that's very, very inspiring.
Yes, I always felt, when I try to, get into flashback mode, Shruti, I become very emotional.
Yeah.
I honestly become very emotional.
I can imagine, because, all of this, as in each year, each month, each week has been a building block to this journey, to where it has brought you and CACR today, I would say.
Absolutely. So now when I talk to people, I tell them that, I go to bed thinking about municipal schools and I get up in the morning thinking about what next to do with municipal schools. So it's been such a major shift, of in thought process and everything, So.
Absolutely.
But I honestly, at the end of the day, whatever mental satisfaction I derived from this few years has been much, 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 much greater than the professional, service which I did and the amount of money which we were earning that time. As compared to that, the money is very, very small, but the satisfaction is, I would say, 50 times, 100 times more than what I did as a professional, So it's been fantastic. I mean, I'm happy that I did it later, but anyway, still we have a lot of things to do and we continue to do it.
Yeah, completely.
So,
Okay, sir, next question, I got a bit curious about, talking about all of these things. So I am just a bit curious about your childhood. How were you as a child? And, I just want to take you back a lot of years back and, basically, how were you as a child?
I was very introvert, needless to say. Like, when I used to have some family members or friends coming over to meet my parents, I used to just go inside the room and sit quietly.
Okay.
I was not a very outspoken person. I was not very comfortable in, meeting people. So what I do now is totally the opposite of what I was.
Right.
It's been a very, very tremendous shift in my personality, I would say, which happened during the professional phase as well, because, from being a very, very quiet and silent child, I suddenly started interacting with the outside world. Then I started traveling to the Middle East. I was there for 2 years, and I was in Hong Kong for a couple of years. That was my earlier assignment when we were exporting things. So that changed me a lot. Though, if you give me a choice even today, I would still like to go back to my room and sit quietly. So that's the inherent nature. But then, because you are in this now social sector field where you need to interact with a lot of people and you need to, so that's made a big change.
Absolutely.
So no complaints, but you can say it's become like a dual personality now.
Yeah.
So in the outside world, you are somebody else, and on a personal level, you like to remain isolated and quiet and, within yourself,
Right, absolutely. And also, would you say that possibly maybe in your teen age, in your teen life or maybe in your youth, you had this inclination or maybe, you had this subconscious thought that you wanted to be either basically wanted to move in this direction. Did you have any thoughts pertaining to this back in those years?
Yeah, actually, now I'll be a little bit more candid. Actually, my father, he worked with Air India. Okay, he was in the administrative department. Even my mother also worked with Air India.
Okay.
Now, I used to observe my father very closely, whether it was friends, whether it was family, whether it was some office colleague or somebody. Whenever I used to get a call, so he used to just get up and say, I'm going to meet this person because that person needs some help.
Okay.
So whether it's a medical help or, on a whatever level, he was always ready, to go and help out anybody in his contact circle or somebody recommends some name that, okay, this person needs help, and he was always ready to go out and help that person.
Right.
No questions asked, no questions asked. And I used to wonder that, why is he's working, he's coming back, he's tired, but still he has that, drive to keep him going and trying to help people. Probably that thing stuck in my mind that, when you do these things, with a selfless purpose, like you don't have any expectations from that person, then that feeling is different, totally different. That sense of satisfaction is there because there's no expectation now.
Right, right.
If something happens, if something positive happens, you feel very, very enthralled and you feel very happy that, because of that small effort which was taken, I could see this thing, and you feel very happy.
Right.
Because from zero expectations, you see some results that really buoys you up, basically. So maybe that was one of the reasons. And then, even in your professional career also, I think you reach a point where you feel that it's becoming a very monotonous thing, And at the end of the day, business, money, professional career, all those things are fine. You reach a particular point in your life where you feel that you must also be doing something towards society, And thankfully, I'm also a student of the Yoga Institute, and which is very close to my place in Santa Cruz. It's one of the oldest institutes, a 100-year-old institute in Padma Colony in Santa Cruz.
Okay.
So I've been a student, not a very good student, but I go there very often. But one thing which I learned there, that basically we are all like karma yogis, duty bound basically.
Right.
So duty towards yourself, duty towards your family, duty towards your place of work and profession. But finally, and the most important duty which we normally overlook and forget is the duty towards society.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
that is where I always felt, are we doing enough for our society? Are we doing our bit? So that just kept me, in that direction. The direction was very clear that I must do something. So I must have spoken to a few NGOs before I got in touch with CRY. In fact, CRY also, they just wanted to invite us for a donors meet, and it happened to be very close to the place I stay. So, and it was after office hours at 7:30 in the evening,
Right.
which was quite comfortable for me. I said, let me drop in and see. And so I would thank CRY actually for this, because of that opportunity, because I could see something in that organization which drove me in that direction, and it helped me learning quite a bit about what is expected and what are the NGOs supposed to be doing at grassroots level. And I also believed in implementing, basically, not just talking and thinking and discussing, but always believe that implementing. So even today, our NGO, CACR, though we work very closely with the government, we work with UNICEF, we work with Tata Trust, but I still believe that the grassroots level challenges, the school projects, are extremely, extremely important to us, because we want to make an impact at that level by being there ourselves,
Right, right.
So we have continued to be an implementing agency, and we will continue to do so. So that's the whole objective of our organization.
Right, absolutely. Also, sir, so I want to talk a bit about your projects and events. So when we say, starting young, so do your
Yes.
projects and events start with this notion? And could you maybe, give us some examples of the same?
Okay. Yes, the whole thought process behind our projects is, first we look at children. Our basic focus remains children. So, as I told you, the whole project started because I started going to municipal schools and started interacting with children as well as the officials.
Right.
So, how do we make an impact and how do we work with children? That was the thought process. In 2014, 2015, around that time, when the Swachh Bharat mission was launched, by the government of India. So there was this talk about Swachhata Abhiyan, cleanliness drive. So our volunteers came and told me, sir, can we do this cleanliness drive in the municipal school? I said, by all means. Absolutely, it's a good initiative. Let children participate, let them understand the importance of hygiene, sanitation. But what shook me, in fact, I used to get up in the morning, 7:30, 8 o'clock, and go to a neighborhood municipal school. That was my habit. Like couple of days in a week, I used to just get up, take my car, go to a neighborhood municipal school, meet the teachers, HM, walk around the school.
Okay.
One day I was in Villaparle, there's a school, Nityanand Municipal School, opposite Garware in Villaparle. And I was, at 8 o'clock, I was there in the school. I was just taking around with the teacher. And I was standing just outside a toilet there.
Okay.
And I saw a child who had used the toilet. He came out, and within a fraction of a minute, the child just came out running. So I stopped the child. I said, Are you just used the toilet? Yes. Did you wash your hands? Yes. But within a few seconds, you just came out. So when did you wash your hands? No, I washed hands. So did you wash your hands with soap? He said, no, but there's no soap in the school.
Okay.
So that, I just got a little disturbed about that initially. And then I said, I walked into the toilet and saw that there was no soap. So I asked the teacher, the soaps are not available in the school. So then the child is just using a toilet and then coming out and just probably, that is, in that school the water was there. But I'm sure there are schools which that point of time did not have even water available in many schools. Now there's a big change. Now infrastructure is improving. A lot of things are being taken care of. And we are with the department all the time, giving them feedback and inputs. So that's how we said, this basic thing of having a soap hand washing with soap. And so by chance I was trying to look at a lot of material available on the net, and then I saw UNICEF, and I said UNICEF works with children and women. So I just picked up the phone and called up UNICEF, and I said, ma'am, I would like to come and meet you people.
Okay.
after a couple of weeks, I got an opportunity, and along with our team members, by the time, as I told you, we had a small group of citizens and, who had joined us and they were, working with us. So we had a meeting with UNICEF, Maharashtra office in Andheri. And the first point of discussion was that we would like to do something for children. They said, okay, but, most of the larger organizations were focusing mainly on rural part of the country. Rightly so. Rightly so. Rural part needs a lot of infrastructure and a lot of funding. A lot of things are required at grassroots level in rural part of the country.
Right.
But then my reaction was that because I've been born and brought up in Mumbai. I've seen Mumbai deteriorating over the last 15, 20, 25, 30 years. And I'm very strongly using the word because I've seen this Dharavi mushrooming. I've seen this M-East ward, the Shivaji Nagar Govandi, and the type of population which is there. It is really overburdened. The whole city is overburdened. And these slum pockets are now just growing. We have the Mandala and we have so many slum pockets across the city. You go to Antop Hill, you go to Parkside area, you go to Andheri East area. I mean, there are slums all along the place. Our H-East ward in Santa Cruz, the domestic airport compound wall, if you see, there are thousands and thousands of families, which have been there for many, many years. The slums have really mushroomed all over Mumbai. And I was telling them that, look here, with the huge population staying in the slums, almost 40 to 45% of the population staying in the slums, with basic lack of infrastructure, like no water available, no lack of toilets, so many issues are there. So why don't we do something with urban as well?
Right.
Ultimately, this so-called slum pocket population, from where has it come? Which part of the country have they come? They have not been born and brought up in Bombay, a majority of them. They have come to Mumbai because they see Mumbai as a city of their dreams. They feel it's a source of their livelihood. They can make some money in the villages or in the rural areas. There is no source of income, regular income, except agriculture. And agriculture again depends on the rains. So many times they just have to leave everything and come to Mumbai with the hope that they will not go hungry. So that brings them to the city, and the city is crumbling actually. If you see, you go to it's actually literally crumbling now. And it's not only the problem of governance. I mean, we may have a lot of money, but where is the space available?
Right.
There's no space available. So if we talk about toilets issue, if we find that looking at the population, the toilets are very, very less, obviously. So we decided to work with children, going back to your point, the children, because we thought that any project we start with, if you are able to impact the children, because children are going to grow, children are quick learners. We have seen in our career that children are very quick learners. They need good handholding support, right type of knowledge, and child-friendly training, basically. And that's how we were fortunate. We got a lot of good material on basic projects like hand washing with soap. We had a nice module. We worked very closely with UNICEF. It was finalized, a training module. It was very child-friendly training module. But now it took us 3 months to work with one batch of children, 35 to 40 at a time. The reason is we focused not on just giving soaps, and we focused on bringing about behavior change in children. How do you bring about a behavior change? Behavior change, not just giving things. Behavior change is, making the child understand what is hand washing, why is it important, how do they wash their hands. Make it very child-friendly, make it very engaging for the children. Teach them the importance of hand washing at critical times. I may wash my hands after using a toilet, but I will not wash my hands before having my food. So all those things have to be drilled into the child. The child, it takes us almost 3 months, a minimum of 3 months, one session a week for 1 hour with a batch of 35 to 40 children, because behavior change needs a smaller batch of children where you can interact 1:1. And the trainer who goes to the school, by the time the program is on, the trainer becomes very comfortable with the children. The children feel the trainer is part of the team, basically. So they start believing and trusting the trainer more and accepting the content of the program. So we have seen beautiful. I mean, today we have reached out to almost 35,000 children in hand washing. And when we go to the school, the children are carrying their own personal soap. I've seen children in municipal school carrying their sanitizer bottles, even before this corona pandemic.
Wow.
I make it a habit now. I go to the school, I just go to a classroom, say, okay, come on, tell me how many of you are carrying your soaps. And I see almost 60-70% of the children opening their bag, removing their soap and showing me. Then there were a
Oh,
couple of children showing me the sanitizer bottle, and I'm very happy. I said, excellent.
I'm sure.
This is
Yeah.
what is the change we were looking for, basically.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's the reason we decided ki let's spend our time. This is like an investment, you can say. Our time, efforts,
Hmm.
funding, resources, everything goes towards children because we want to impact the children, because the children are the future of tomorrow. They are the future
Right.
citizens. They need to be inculcated good habits. Good
Right.
practices need to be inculcated at a young age,
Hmm.
and it remains with you lifelong, you know.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, and while we started this, then the second thing which came up, I mean, I was just sitting at night and on my WhatsApp chat, and I said, I read one article about menstruation issues with
Mm-hmm.
respect to girls, adolescent girls, and
Mm-hmm.
girls being secluded and put into menstrual huts and all that thing I was reading in Nepal and
Yeah.
all that
Yeah.
stuff.
It still happens. Yeah.
And that was like, you know, the turning point. And I posted
Yeah.
in the group. By the time, you know, since I told you that we didn't have funding,
Uh-huh.
we were working mainly with volunteers. Now, how did I get volunteers? Again, that's a very interesting story.
Uh-huh.
Uh, the whole thought process was that, you know, we were going out to meet the social service groups in colleges.
Okay.
So let's say we had the NSS and we had the Enactus. Our team members, including our other volunteers, we started going to school, the colleges basically,
Okay.
and interacting with the youth there. And we said that, okay, come on, can you give time, 3 months of your time and
Hmm.
be a part of the project? We will give you a school which is convenient to you, where you stay. Because every few
Okay.
kilometers from your place of residence, there's a municipal school.
Hmm.
By the time our interaction with the education department was so good that today in BMC,
Uh-huh.
education department, we are probably one of the few NGOs which has the permission to go and implement any project in municipal schools across Mumbai. Because now the
Wow.
education department trusts us. They said that, okay,
Yeah.
when CACR comes to us with a project, it is going to be a good project. They will take care of all the formalities. They will see that nothing goes wrong.
Right.
They will
Right.
take care of the children in the school, and they will not misuse the facilities provided, you know.
Right. Absolutely.
So that confidence is very there, excellent. And then I really thank the education department officials for their trust in us, and we have tried our best to live up to their expectations.
Uh-huh.
In fact, we did the Wash in Schools program across Mumbai. All 1,100 schools participated with UNICEF. And water sanitation and hygiene was the project we started. And with the girls, we also did the menstrual hygiene management, which I was talking about. And
Mm-hmm.
as I told you, when we didn't have money, we didn't have funding,
Uh-huh.
I just posted at 9:30 in the night, I just posted that I'm keen to do something about this. And
Okay.
within the next half an hour, I had 20 people sending me messages on WhatsApp, sir, we are ready to help. Please tell us what we can do. And so
Wow.
it was like,
Yeah.
a very big moral booster for us.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
then being a man, then people were asking me, sir, how did you think about menstrual hygiene?
Hmm.
So I said,
Yeah.
I mean, why not? I mean, why are we thinking like this that men should not be discussing menstrual hygiene and they should be still hiding the sanitary pad, the women hiding the sanitary pads or wrapping it in the
Yeah.
newspaper and keeping it under the closet. You
Uh-huh.
know, I think
Uh-huh.
it's getting a bit, I was feeling a bit bad about it. I said, why are we
Yeah.
doing this? But
Absolutely.
then see, the type of people we interact with in the schools, they are not very open, right? The
Hmm. Hmm.
mothers, the parents are not very open to
Right.
discuss about this.
Right.
So it did take us a lot of time to convince the parents also. And so that's how we started participating in something known as the school management committee meetings.
Okay.
And school management committee meetings, we invite the parents.
Uh-huh.
We have a chat with them once a month. We do talk to them about the projects, what we are doing, and we also talk to them about the importance of hygiene and sanitation.
Okay.
So this started almost 3 years back, and today, I'm not using the word thanks to the corona pandemic, but because of the pandemic,
Uh-huh.
hand washing with soap, every person is now discussing about it. The 20-second hand wash and the 40-second hand wash and all those things are being
Uh-huh.
discussed by each and every person. Whereas
Yeah.
this particular topic we have started 3 years back in schools with the children, and I'm happy to see this. In fact, ONGC Executive Director gave us a compliment. In fact, we
Uh-huh.
took about 200 children from municipal schools for a visit to ONGC Bandakulla complex, the head office,
Okay.
and they performed the hand washing song in front of the ONGC office staff, and the executive director also was there. And after the program, after about a couple of weeks when I again visited ONGC, he told me, Nitinji, thanks to your municipal school children and the way they demonstrated the hand washing steps, I have got a Dettol liquid hand sanitizer right on my table here.
Wow.
So whenever I get up and go for my lunch or whatever, I come back, I just use this hand washing liquid.
Yeah.
So your municipal school children have taught me the importance of hand washing soap.
Wow, that's
and the right step. And coming from ONGC executive director, it was like,
absolutely.
Gave me a very, great satisfaction, I would say.
I am so sure about it. It's so absolutely like, the way you are telling that, the way you inculcate habits and how they stay. So that's very important. And I think that's the whole idea behind most of your projects and, basically all the ideas that you go ahead with, that you are supposed to start young. And that's how you can sort of, build the character of these kids who are eventually going to sort of, take our country ahead.
Absolutely,
and take this
you have
world
to change
ahead.
the mindset. Mindset has to be changed. You see, two things which come to mind. First thing is, when we pick up any project, we want to ensure that we are not replicating or doing what the BMC is supposed to do for the education. So we don't get into teaching children directly. Okay. We feel that there are sufficient teachers in the system.
Right.
Okay, there's a problem with respect to teaching English. Okay. They don't have very good or as many English teachers as required. But our teachers in BMC are very well-to-do, well-qualified, well-trained, and all the training is provided. So it's not that the teachers, we are not supposed to be taking over the teachers' job in any case, first of all, I believe. NGOs are not supposed to be creating parallel systems. And I hate this whole system of NGOs trying to take over the schools and running there. If you have a good model, let's say, I give you respect. Again, I'm not trying to belittle anybody. But my humble request and suggestion is, let's say I have a very good idea, I have a very good model of running a school very efficiently and managing it very well. How long can an NGO or how long should an NGO continue to be doing that? That's my question. Is it going to be a lifelong journey of running a particular municipal school, or because that school was not doing well, so I will take over the school, I will make it my own school and run it over a period of 25 years, 30 years, 40 years. I don't think that's a very good idea, personally. I feel that a good model should be replicable, and slowly we should hand over it to the system so that the system takes charge.
Absolutely.
Which is more challenging than doing it yourself. See, if I'm doing a job myself, I know what I need to do, and within my limitations, within my knowledge, within my everything, I will do it to the best of my capability. The challenge is when you have to get the work done from your team and other people, right? And that is where is the skill required. Doing it yourself is fine, you will do it. Getting it done is a bigger challenge always.
Right, absolutely.
So I always felt that models should be there. NGOs should experiment, should try, should come up with new ideas, suggestions, add value. But ultimately, we should leave it to the government to handle it and scale it up. So if government needs handholding, do it. Let's do the handholding with the government also. But let us not take over their responsibility, what they are supposed to do.
Yeah, that's so true.
So if a teacher is drawing 50,000 rupees salary in a BMC, and if an NGO without any funding or with very limited funding tries to hire a teacher and pays 15,000 rupees to a teacher, what type of satisfaction is the teacher going to get? And when she goes to the same school where the BMC teacher is getting 50,000 rupees salary, and she as an NGO representative is getting 15,000 rupees salary, what type of motivation level or sustainability factor is going to be there?
Right.
If I am in that place, I would also say, no, sorry, I'm not going to do it. Why should I go and give more time, more efforts as compared to a normal teacher who is getting 3 times more salary than I'm getting?
Right, absolutely.
So this is something which I honestly disagree with a lot of things happening around us. But with due respect to NGOs, because I think in our country, our NGOs are doing fantastic work. I mean, even during this COVID relief time, I realized, that what a stupendous job the NGOs have got together and done, which would not have been possible. So your question, I'm sorry, I'm just going a bit away from the track just to
No, that's absolutely fine.
More.
Yeah.
But the focus remains children. We will continue to go back to children. We will work with the children and their parents, and then through the children, we will reach out to communities also. That is to the school management committees and reach out to the families, call them, participate in parents meeting in the school,
Right.
Make the parents equal stakeholders in the system.
Completely.
Right now,
Yeah.
the parents feel that they are sending a child to the school. Now it is the headache of the teacher and the system to take care of the child. But as a parent, it is also their responsibility, right? If the child goes back home, the child needs to be monitored, taken care, guided
Absolutely.
properly. You can't say that the child has gone to the school, child is not performing, so it is the school's problem. It's not
And that's
true.
a very
It's not
common
true.
notion. Yeah, that's a very common.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Because I'm a daily wager, because I'm working from morning 9 to evening, late evening, so I don't get time to work on my child. That cannot be a reason for your child's poor performance
Right.
in school. That cannot be the only reason.
Right.
Because lack of participation, you don't even bother to come and check whether your child is come back home and what is the child doing at home. Or is the child studying, giving some time to studies? Is the child being fed properly? Is the child being taken care of? Behind the back, if the child has a mobile phone in their hand, what is the child using it for? All these things, who is monitoring that? I think you can't just shun away the responsibility and say, no, the child is going to a school and that's it.
Right.
It has to be a shared responsibility between the community, the parents and the school. And NGOs always are available to do their bit, come and help in whatever way, capacity building, awareness, training, behavior change, value addition. I would say NGOs should come with value addition, basically.
Yeah.
If you are not adding value to the system, I don't think we should be there in the system. We have to add value.
Right. Absolutely.
We have to also understand the challenges which the government faces. I'm not saying the government is doing the best job possible. Neither am I talking about any political party or anybody irrespective of the political party. I have worked enough now for last 13 years. As I told you, I've been working with the system. I have met maybe 7 or 8 education officers and 7 additional municipal commissioners and deputy EOs. I've interacted with them in details.
Right.
One-to-one interaction. So I see their side of the story also, the bureaucracy, the politicians. I've seen that side of the story also. The difficulties, I may be a very well-intentioned person working with the PNC, but then I have my limitations. Because the system doesn't allow me to do what I want to do.
Right.
So there are a lot of challenges. So anyway, we as NGOs will continue to do value addition projects. We will continue to focus on children primarily, so that we bring about the qualitative change which we are expecting.
Right.
The focus will bring a qualitative change.
Right. Absolutely.
Yes, please.
Okay, sir. So my next question for you would be that, all these value addition activities that you have been doing and, you have been working on them. So how do you majorly intend to improve the accountability in the system? Like, how do you sort of, how do you monitor the indicators and how do you improve the accountability of the system? Maybe if you could throw some light on these aspects as well.
So, a very good question. So when it comes to monitoring indicators of our projects, which we do, so we have both the indicators. We have the quantitative indicators and we have the qualitative indicators.
Right.
So when we start a project, apart from the number of children which we try to reach out to, we have plans. Okay. So when we get let's say a funding for a particular project for 5,000 children, so the quantitative number is already defined that we need to reach out to 5,000 children.
Right.
The qualitative we have defined based on our training programs. We have defined the questions, the indicators basically.
Okay.
So we do a baseline assessment and an endline assessment. So before the program, after the program, and we get a comparative analysis done.
Okay. All right.
So I'll give you one example. Like in our menstrual hygiene management program, when we started the program 2.5-3 years back, we found that almost 90% plus girls were missing their school during the periods.
Right.
Okay. Which also meant that there was lack of sanitary material available in the school. The girls it came as a big shock to me as a man, but I will now be very candid and share this with you. I got to know 2 years back that 65 to 70% of the girls who were participating in our menstrual hygiene management program did not have undergarments.
Okay, all right.
And it came as a big shock to me. Honestly, I was not expecting it. I didn't even think on those lines at that point of time. Till then subsequently in our next program, when we started giving menstrual hygiene kits to the girls, we also gave them a pair of panties. So more than 25,000 panties we distributed along with our menstrual hygiene kit, which comprised of a sanitary pad also, and some IEC material. So basically the whole idea was that when we are getting into the project, we just look at all these, parameters and aspects. So quantitative, qualitative analysis is being done regularly. So after the project, we found that 99% of the girls were not missing the school during the period because they knew how to handle it.
Right.
Not because we
Absolutely.
did a wonderful job, but they were confident enough to handle the menstruation, the periods. They knew how to tackle it. In
Right.
fact, our trainers used to also give their personal numbers with them so that in case they have any difficulties, they feel shy of going back to the teacher or the headmaster or even to their mothers. They used to call up and speak to our trainers, and our trainers on the phone used to guide them. That don't
Oh,
worry,
okay.
this is
Wow.
what it is. So suppose they were getting cramps, then this is what needs to be done.
Yeah.
So this type of handholding we continue to do, the girls, and we see a big change in this. The girls are
Right.
becoming more confident. In fact, as a man, I also go to the school now and talk to the girls. In fact, I did a joint session with the boys and girls together on menstrual
Oh,
hygiene. I wanted to see the
wow.
reaction actually. So
Okay.
at the end of the program, the girls were became very close to me. They were very free and very friendly, and they were saying, "Sir, I mean, आप regularly आई है हमारे स्कूल में." And I was
Okay.
see what happens ultimately. The children need this type of guidance, counseling. You have to reach to that level
I
basically.
totally agree. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. They have to feel that
So
comfort that, yeah.
absolutely, even though they are discussing with a man, they should feel comfortable, no? That okay, I'm speaking to a father figure, let's say, my
Right.
elder brother or somebody like that.
Absolutely.
So I'm not going to give them any wrong. And during the training program, on menstrual hygiene, we also, because the mothers also, there's a lot of reservations. See, what we observed that whatever good things you teach the girls in the school, ultimately when they have their periods, they go back home. So the mothers will tell them, the myths and taboos are there with this subject. Don't do this and don't do that and don't go to the temple and don't have
All
a
of
bath
that.
and all that.
Yeah.
So we also call the mothers during the final session where we invite a gynecologist.
Okay. All right.
So right type of medically correct information is shared with the mothers also. And it's a free session. The mothers are free to ask any questions, not only about menstrual hygiene, but also menopause also, because many of the mothers, they came and told me, sir, हमको बहुत मन में fear है menopause का. इसके बारे में हमें थोड़ी जानकारी चाहिए, So
Acha. Okay.
when the mothers came and told me as a man, I was saying, no, this is something which we need to do it in the school. And so it has become mandatory now. All our trainers at the end of the program, they invite a gynecologist. It's a value addition we do in our project. Not many people do it. We do it. We feel it's very important.
Right.
And we have seen the difference, and the gynecologist really gives them excellent information, medically correct information on the subject, which again helps in building their confidence. They know how to tackle it now, basically.
Right. Absolutely. Being a woman, I am honestly, I would like to thank you for doing something like this because this is very much needed. This is actually, needed in I would say every part of our country in that sense, that this awareness is still missing in huge chunks. And
Absolutely.
creating such awareness, I'm pretty sure that because you are in Mumbai right now, because all of this is happening in Mumbai. So I'm very glad that all of this is being taken care of, at least in that city.
Yes. Shruti, I just want to add one thing here because see, the menstrual hygiene, a lot of people are doing it. Not many people have done it. Many organizations have conducted the program, which was primarily restricted to creating an awareness program and distribution of sanitary material, sanitary pads, cloth pads, and all those things. So when we do this now in the schools, basically, we focus not only on the distribution of these things, but also mainly on the behavior change, which is more important to us than just giving sanitary pads or giving cloth pads. See, affordability, accessibility of the material is important, but I think equally important or rather more important is the importance of menstrual hygiene and the thought which goes behind it. And the behavior change and the confidence with which the girls can tackle it, we can see a brighter future for them tomorrow.
Yeah.
Menstrual health will definitely be taken care of. They know how to tackle it basically, and they are future mothers. So hopefully for the next few generations, if we have educated, knowledgeable young ladies, potential mothers of tomorrow, I'm sure they will take care of their children also, their daughters in future, so that this effort which goes into it will have a multiplier effect. Hopefully, I'm just keeping my fingers crossed. I hope that it just spreads more and we are able to see a big change in the future generation.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have to say this that, it has to start somewhere, and I'm so glad that, these things are happening now, that, at least the awareness is out there, that, yeah, it is happening. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Yes.
Right. So, sir, also, talking about improving the accountability in the system, could you also maybe...
Yes. I'm sorry, I did
No
not touch
worries.
that point.
No
See,
worries.
basically, as I told you, that we work on both the fronts. On one side, we have our projects going on in municipal schools,
Uh-huh.
and parallelly, whatever observations we get, we gather. So let's say when we are working on a personal hygiene, and we find that the school does not have sufficient toilets or does not
Mm-hmm.
have water in the school, or there's a lack of soap available in the school,
Uh-huh.
or there are no sanitary pads. So I personally interact, as I told you, with the hierarchy of the education department very often.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Very often. It's like almost a monthly visit to the department. I interact with the education officer, the deputy principal commissioner, joint principal commissioner, and just keep on sharing my observations and concerns with them.
Okay.
And I'm extremely grateful to the education department. I'll give you one very, very beautiful example, which I will never forget in my life.
Mm-hmm.
About 3.5-4 years back, we had the chairperson of the education committee, Ritu Tavde. She had just taken over as the chairperson of education committee, and I took an appointment to meet her
Okay.
in the evening. So after waiting for 2 hours, finally I got to meet her.
Mm-hmm.
And during the brief interaction, I just made a point, a very casual point. I said,
Mm-hmm.
ma'am, you are a woman and we are doing this menstrual hygiene program in schools. Don't you think that the girls in municipal schools should have access to sanitary pads?
Hmm.
BMC is spending a lot of money in giving a lot of things to them. And don't you please think that can sanitary pads not also become a part of the things which you provide?
Mm-hmm.
And within 6 months, she moved the proposal. I think the education committee took charge and then they moved the proposal. And since last 2 years, first of all, all secondary schools have the vending machines
Okay.
as well as the incinerators also, the disposal also. It is not just giving the material,
Uh-huh.
it is also about disposal of the sanitary pads. Okay.
All right.
The second part, since last year, every girl starting from class 6 onwards, and that is the time when we start our training program,
Okay.
class 6 onwards, every girl is getting free sanitary pads in every municipal schools across Mumbai throughout the year.
Okay. All right. Wow.
So these are the
Yeah.
things this was the gap which we saw in the system. We immediately tried to communicate with the department. They were glad to accept it. They started implementing it.
Hmm.
Yeah. So,
Right.
this is just one example. Similarly, when the BMC also gives a lot of free items, to the children, the school bag and the uniforms and other things. So we have given them very recently a recommendation that every child should get a dictionary or even an atlas. So the things are already moving in that direction. The department has already taken our suggestions very, 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 graciously, and they said, okay, this is a good idea, we will go ahead. Or even during the UNICEF program on WASH when we did 2 years back, we did a survey, a mapping of the schools basically. That did the school have sufficient number of toilets? Was there a toilet for the children with special needs? Okay. We also saw that.
Okay.
We also saw that the schools are not meeting the guidelines of the Swachh Vidyalaya because for every 40 children, let's say, there is to be a toilet, boys toilet or a girls toilet. Or for every 20 children, there should be a tap available for washing their hands. Because on one side, you are talking about behavior change of washing hands with soap. On the other side, it has to be backed up with the right infrastructure also. Because children get the recess for, let's say, half an hour.
Right.
So we are expecting them to wash their hands with soap before they come and actually sit. Before they come and actually sit for their meals.
Right.
So it has to be back. So all these suggestions we were all suggesting with the infrastructure cell. There's the infrastructure cell where we were interacting with them. And the suggestions were accepted. A lot of places the things have started moving. They started constructing toilets for the children with special needs. So things are moving. It is slow because ultimately it's a government department, and it is a slow movement. But they were very receptive towards suggestion because it was given with a very, very good intent, with a good practical intent. It was
Absolutely.
not thrust on them that, okay, why are you not giving us more toilets in the school, or why are you not constructing more within us? So they are telling us
Hmm.
that if the building is already there in place, how do we add more toilets if there's no space? How
Uh-huh.
do we connect the sewer lines?
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
So now these are realistic questions. I mean,
Right.
I can't challenge them. No, no, I want 10 toilets as per the Swachh Vidyalaya guidelines. You have
Right.
only
Right.
4. But that
Yeah.
fellow is asking me, how do I construct 6 more toilets in the building which is already there?
Hmm.
Okay. So if it's a new construction or a, major repairs of the building, then they are taking care of these guidelines now.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this slow and steady steps, but then the things are changing slowly and steadily. I'm not saying I'm very happy or totally satisfied with the moment, but
Uh-huh.
I'm also feeling glad that small things have definitely happened. They are being
Absolutely.
looked into. We have gone with the intent of not asking anything for us. You see, as a non-profit, the department looks at you, okay, what are you going to do? First question.
Mm-hmm.
What is it you are expecting from us?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
I'm telling them I don't want anything from you for our NGO. Nothing. What I want is for the school. What I want is for the children. What I want is for the system. So
Right.
that approach has been
Absolutely.
slightly different. The moment I
Yeah.
say, no, no, I want to, can you give me the school? I will take over the school. I will run it and I will do a fantastic job.
Hmm.
I will teach English. I will do this. I will do that. So then
Hmm.
there's a question mark, that I'm asking it for myself and I don't know what is my,
Uh-huh.
and they don't know what is my intention. As
Uh-huh.
an NGO, why do you expect them to trust NGOs? I mean,
Right. Right. Right.
so
Absolutely.
since we
Yeah.
don't ask anything for ourselves,
Hmm.
so it's being very, very, open, and we are free to go and suggest or give our suggestions to them.
Uh-huh.
They are quite receptive. In fact, another very beautiful and very, I would say I was very happy with that effort. You see, there's an annual budget for school picnics. Okay.
Okay. Hmm.
This is worth listening, Shruti. Yeah, this is worth listening. I'm
Uh-huh.
stressing on this.
Right.
There's an annual budget for school picnics. It was about 1.5 crores, and they were sending children from class 4 and 7 every year
Uh-huh.
to, some of the other, entertainment parks and other places,
Right.
Through our contact, we were in touch with Kidzania in
Okay.
Ghatkopar.
Okay.
And Kidzania, we were discussing with them, and I just had a very open chat with them. I said, suppose you get an opportunity to send 3 lakh children to Kidzania.
Uh-huh.
So they were eyes wide open. "Arey, is that an opportunity?" I said, yes, suppose we do that.
Right.
Can you give us a very concessional, rate
Hmm.
for this?
Hmm.
And you'll be surprised, I was sitting with the additional municipal commissioner. I appreciate that lady, Mrs. Kundan,
Mm-hmm.
Idris Kundan. Now she's with the state. She told me, when I told her, ki, Madam, can you send children to Kidzania? And then
Uh-huh.
she looked at me, is it going to be, I mean, what are you saying, Nitin? The entry at Kidzania is 1,000 rupees plus, 1,100 plus.
Uh-huh.
I said, you don't worry about the price now.
Okay.
If you get an opportunity, will you send?
Hmm.
She said, why not? I'll be glad to do that. But, it has to be looked into because the commercial part also has to be looked
Uh-huh.
into because we have certain budget constraints.
Right.
So we had a chat with Kidzania, and Kidzania came back with a stupendous offer. I mean, they came with an offer which was like one-third the price of the regular price.
All right.
So,
Wow.
and we
Yeah.
got everything documented. Then I shared the document with the additional municipal commissioner. The
Uh-huh.
very next day, the thing was discussed with the municipal commissioner there, and within, about a week or so, the project was approved, and in that particular year, 77,000 children went to Kidzania. They had a
Oh.
gala time, excellent
Wow.
time. And the next year, I got to know that there was all the children were not covered, like, because they had a budget constraint. So I told them that whether it's 1.5 crores or 5 crores, how does it
Hmm.
matter to BMC? BMC has money. Education department
Hmm.
had funds which were not
Uh-huh.
being utilized.
Uh-huh.
So then they increased the number of children participating, and the next year almost 5.5 crores, like 3 times the existing budget was sanctioned for
Okay.
sending children to Kidzania.
Oh,
So
wow.
it was like a
Yeah.
super story for us. We were very happy that children were going to such a place where
Absolutely.
they could learn. It was edutainment, as Kidzania calls it. Education was entertainment. So it was
Right.
edutainment for the children. It was very good. We met the children after the program. They were very happy. They remembered a lot of things which they did at Kidzania.
That's
So
amazing.
these
Yeah.
small things, we see, once we know the problem, we just don't leave it. We keep on interacting with the department,
Right. Right.
the
Right.
midday meal problems or the health checkup problems. Like, since, as I told you, that I've been now interacting with the department for many years now.
Mm-hmm.
So I basically interact with the sub-departments also as well. So
Okay.
there is a separate department for the midday meal, a separate department for the housekeeping, separate department for the infrastructure, separate department for, various school health programs and other things, So I interact with them and try to give my suggestions personally, officially.
Right.
When I get a chance to meet the hierarchy, I tell them first aid boxes were not available. When I'm talking about when Ashish Kumar Singh was the additional municipal commissioner 10 years back. During my meeting, I told them, sir, first aid boxes. He says, are you telling me? I said, yes, I'm telling you, they're not available. Within 72 hours, all the schools received first aid boxes.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, these are some of the things, which kept on, that confidence kept on building up, that if we approach them in the right manner, with the right request, I think it can be taken care of. And ultimately, we are not asking anything for ourselves. It is ultimately for the betterment. Because even the BMCA or the government should realize that the government schools mean the children are dropping out. Okay. Despite all these freebies, despite all these benefits, the children are dropping out, and they have to do a lot of soul searching on this.
Right, absolutely.
I this question every time that, okay, all this is very good, nice. Why are the children not increasing? Why is the enrollment not improving in the school? So you have a digital classroom, you have a virtual studio, you have so many facilities you're providing to the children. Why is it that the children are still not coming to the municipal schools? And one of the reasons which I also understand after talking to parents is many parents have aspirations of sending children to English medium schools. That has been one of these concerns, especially in metropolitan like Mumbai. Here, parents even and I mean, I'm not questioning their intentions of why they want to send to English medium. See, there are a couple of things. What the world has taught us, in fact, we don't learn these things. The primary education always, you go to any developed countries, it is always the national language or the mother tongue, basically. So when you go to Japan, it is in Japanese. English is the subject. Okay. You go to Germany, they speak in German.
Right.
You go to France, they speak in French. But in our country, we have multiple languages. We have, so the RTE also mandates that you have to run the schools in so many different mediums, seven mediums, and all the problems are there. So getting the type of children, getting type of teachers, getting the infrastructure accordingly done, the resources, all this is quite challenging. It's not easy.
Right.
I mean, so English medium, the government also has started in Mumbai something known as the Mumbai Public Schools.
Okay.
MPS schools. So they are primarily English medium, which starts from the pre-primary onwards.
All right.
So there's a Balwadi within the school from pre-primary right up to class 10. Okay.
All right.
So that's been a positive step taken by the BMC. MPS schools have started coming for last few years now. And we find that the enrollment has been reasonably good and increasing every year there.
Okay.
Marginally, but it is increasing. It is increasing.
Yeah, so
but at the same time, there has been dropout in the Marathi medium. Maximum dropout has happened in Marathi medium.
Okay.
Then Hindi medium and Urdu medium has been fairly consistent. Urdu medium, the good thing is Urdu medium, a lot of children are enrolling themselves in municipal schools. The numbers are quite steady and are increasing. In fact, many schools, they don't have space to accommodate the children now. BMC schools, I can give you names of the schools where you can just drop in and see. There are schools in Shivaji Nagar, Chikalwadi, Rafiq Nagar, Devnar Colony, where there are 6,000 children in a school building.
Oh, wow.
There's no space at all. There's no space at all for children to, there are not enough classrooms in the school to accommodate these children. So it's not that everywhere the situation is bad. There are some schools which have good enrollment.
Right.
So enrollment is one part, but of course, quality of education and other support is also equally important. In fact, more important, I would say. But I think at the end of the day, I always felt that shared responsibility is what is required, and parents need to be empowered. Parents need to participate. Cannot just leave everything to the government and cannot leave everything to the system. So accountability will only improve when I, as a parent, go to the school and start looking at my child's performance and start interacting with the teacher and look at the infrastructure and then start discussing with the school.
Right.
Only then. But if I am as a parent not participating in the school, it's difficult to create accountability, right?
Right.
Stakeholders have to get involved to demand accountability. Yeah.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
if consistently my child is not doing well, it is my responsibility and duty to go to the teacher and understand what is the problem with the child. Yeah. The child may be a slow learner. The child maybe is remaining absent in school. Maybe
Right.
the parent feels that the child is in school, but the child is not in the school. So, there's monitoring has to be on both the sides, the teachers, HMs,
Right.
as well as the parents.
Right. Absolutely.
So, with due respect, I'm not trying to protect anybody. I'm not trying to talk in favor of the department as such, but I'm saying that the responsibility has to
Has
be
to be
shared.
shared. Completely.
Yeah, shared
Completely.
responsibility. And NGOs are definitely welcome. They should come in, do their bit, add value to the system, do a lot of value education, support,
Right.
whatever things we can do as a society to create some positive outcome, basically. Yeah.
That's the whole idea behind everything.
Whole idea behind this. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, sir. So I also have a question because I was going through the website and I saw that, there were some events for classical dancing. So I wanted to touch this topic, that the role of the cultural awareness. So how does CACR sort of, bring it all together?
So basically, now since last couple of years, there are certain days during the year. Let's say we recently had in month of May the menstrual hygiene management day. Of course, this year the schools were also shut, so we could not conduct any major program as such. Or we have a global hand washing day sometime in October, I think so. Yeah, it's sometime in October. Yes. So on global hand washing day, on this menstrual hygiene day, or we conduct some sort of a program in the schools where we get the children together, and it not only helps in creating awareness, but it also basically strengthens their belief and into the particular program and the importance of the program. They understand that this is being celebrated all over the world.
Right.
A lot of participation is happening all over the world, and they also want to be a part of it, basically. They're also happy to be a part of it. So we do this type of events as well in the school, primarily with the children, but they are like couple of events in a year.
All right.
And the department also is, they conduct also a lot of programs for the children in the school, basically on various days, to celebrate and commemorate these various, Swami Vivekananda Day and Abdul Kalam Day, so many President Abdul Kalam Day. So,
Right.
a lot of things are being done in the school at the school level by the BMC. So, as I told you, we look at these type of issues which concern the projects which are aligned to our projects, basically.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So, sir, also I want to ask you, what is exactly your vision for CACR?
Basically, as an NGO working for children primarily, we want to work in various, like we want to be with children and we want to support them on initiatives which are interlinked. So let's say we are working on WASH today, water, sanitation, hygiene. It has a direct impact on the health. Okay.
Right.
So we also want to look at the school health program. If we are looking at the health of the child, we are also talking about the nutrition of the child. Okay.
Right.
So we are looking at the midday meal of the child. So what basically as a child rights organization we are looking at is how do we work on various issues holistically, covering all these issues which are related to children. So whether it is child protection, whether it is nutrition, whether it is health, whether it is quality education, whether it's water, sanitation, hygiene, all these I think have to be looked into holistically, and that's our vision, that we want to work on various verticals within the system,
Right.
but work closely with the government, look at the guidelines, see how it is being implemented, how does it reach the beneficiaries, because we know in our country that guidelines are there in place. Many a times they don't reach the beneficiaries. There's a lack of awareness. So basically the vision is to be a bridge basically between the government as well as the beneficiaries. We want to ensure that these guidelines and the benefits actually reach the beneficiaries to whatever extent possible.
Right.
And then at the same time, if there are some, let's say, suggestions or improvements, we also interact with the government basically. That,
Okay. All right.
This is what is being done, but this needs improvement or better interaction or better support. So to give you, the basic vision is that we want to remain focused on child rights, look at various aspects for children,
Right.
various verticals. Okay. But every vertical needs a lot of technical knowledge, support, and
All of
implementation.
that,
So as a
absolutely.
growing organization, our vision is clear, but at the same time, we also need to create that type of a team, the infrastructure, and the funding available for these programs.
Right, right,
Because
right.
in our country, the government does not fund any NGO, unfortunately.
Yeah,
We are actually doing a lot of job which the government is supposed to do, but then
yeah.
it is expected that all that should be done voluntarily and
Right,
no funding coming from the government as such.
right, right, right.
At least
Absolutely.
I have not, received any funding or any such opportunity to get funds from the government as such. So I
Yeah.
am waiting for the day where the government looks at us more positively.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah,
Hopefully that
yeah.
day will come soon and
Yeah,
yeah,
hopefully. Let's hope for the best. Yes.
absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, sir. So before, we end this absolutely very inspiring and very, where you have created a lot of awareness about a lot of things, I want to ask you that how can people be a part of CSVR and in what capacity? Like, how can, basically people
Yeah.
be a part of CSVR?
Yes. So as I told you that, when we started, it was more of a citizens participation, voluntary activities, voluntary participation of citizens. And through the citizens network, we registered our organization. So it was basically a citizens movement, you can say.
Mm-hmm.
And I would like to mention, I would like to thank my directors who believed in us and who came in, joined hands together, supported us. So we have now 3 directors. I am the director and CEO of the organization. Then we have Mrs. Malkani, Rani Malkani, who is
Mm-hmm.
running We Can. And
Okay.
there's Mr. MP Singh, who was a former past president of Rotary Club of Bangalore.
Okay.
So they have interacted with me in the past, and they saw this whole, passion of working on the municipal schools, and they were also very concerned about this issue, and so they joined hands. So
Hmm.
we 3 of us worked together, and now we are 3 directors.
Okay.
Prior to that, I had Vidya Vaidya also. She was also a director with us.
All right.
So basically, it's basically a citizens. We have just come out from the regular, profession or business and whatever we were doing
Hmm.
to look into these issues. So that is one part of it. Now, initially, we were dependent totally on volunteers, and
Uh-huh.
they were all youth volunteers.
Uh-huh.
But today, we are getting slightly more and more into professional mode, in the sense, because we find that, the volunteers are available normally for shorter durations.
Hmm.
And qualitative impact projects need longer commitments.
Right.
Okay. So if a volunteer is available, let's say for 1 month,
Hmm.
so I don't want to tell the volunteer, sorry, I can't, give you an opportunity.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
But if I need to do a behavior change program where I
Hmm.
do a menstrual hygiene or a hand washing with soap, so I need
Hmm.
commitment of 6 months, 1 year.
Hmm.
I need them to go multiple times to the school.
Right.
And so we are investing more in people today because we need that qualitative type of impact which we are looking for.
Hmm.
Okay. And so if we welcome citizens who want to come and help us, we welcome volunteers who want to come and work with us, but our expectations are a little bit long term now,
Right.
because as I told you, the focus is not just about creating awareness. Awareness creation can be done in a few hours or a few days or a few weeks.
Hmm.
Behavior change, communication, training takes much longer duration, a much longer commitment,
Right.
and a proper technical knowledge and support, which is provided to the
Uh-huh.
trainers.
Uh-huh.
So today we are accepting volunteers. They are
Uh-huh.
welcome to join us. Every year we have. Even this year we had, for the computer literacy, we had almost 75 to 80 volunteers who went to schools and conducted programs. So there are some projects where, the youth comes in and they help our children to learn computers. And the
Hmm.
youth is quite tech savvy. For
Uh-huh.
a college student to go and teach computers is very like child's play for him.
Yeah, yeah.
And the children also enjoy because they find a young person coming and working with them.
Hmm.
We are very free in interacting with them, and they pick up very, very quickly. But for
Uh-huh.
the behavior change, we are looking at a little bit of mature, long-term, commitment
Hmm.
type of, people who can work with us long-term,
Right.
basically.
Right. Right.
So
Absolutely.
that's the whole thing, and I am actually thankful to all my volunteers thousands of them. I mean, there were a couple of years where we had 2,000, 3,000 volunteers.
Wow.
It's like becoming very difficult to manage volunteers, in fact.
Yeah.
So we had one Dr. Richa Singh also with us. She used to
Uh-huh.
manage volunteers. I was
Okay.
professionally engaged, so she used to manage, and it was like a Herculean task managing
Yeah.
volunteers. with all their academic commitments and all that. So now we are actually welcoming people to come and join us. They can come and assist us. Like I must also add that this COVID relief has really brought out a lot of support by way of citizen support and participation, voluntary participation. We did ration kits distribution to more than 15,000 families, 60,000 people from the benefit. We provided cooked packed meals through Rebel Foods, Brenda's Food, Yummy Tiffins. So a lot of things. We did hand sanitizer, 8,000 liters to the Haskell Institute. So a lot of support has started coming into us, and it's been directed at the right time, at the right place. So people can definitely come in and help us during these times also. When we conduct the awareness programs, they can come and join us and they can help us participate and they can take it further. Because as I told you, the challenge is quite a large one, because reaching out to 3 lakh children in Mumbai alone is a big challenge.
Absolutely.
So we welcome the participation of citizens, but honestly, we are looking at a little bit of long-term commitment.
Completely.
Keeping in mind the background of as I told you, the BCC part is more important to us today as compared to a normal awareness program.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right, sir, before we can end this conversation, can I just maybe ask you one last question about Jeevan Rakh?
Yes, I think it is a wonderful, extremely wonderful initiative initiated by UNICEF. The Maharashtra office got into action. We happen to be the urban development partners of UNICEF for WASH program. So obviously we were part of the program, and then there was a very nice platform created. For the first time probably I saw more than 50 or 70 NGOs coming together, no questions asked. Everybody was trying to be, going out of the way, supporting. Somebody was arranging volunteers, somebody was arranging vehicles, somebody was arranging packed food. So the logistics, we were buying a lot of stuff and sending it every day. The Jeevan Rakh idea came basically because the whole thought process was the migrants were leaving the city, or they were very desperate to leave the city, and it was not being very well managed, the whole outflow of migrants.
Right.
There was no dignity, there was no safety taken care in, no consideration at all. It was, I mean, probably very difficult for the even government to manage.
Right.
So NGO stepped in, and for last, I think almost 3 weeks now, we have been sending vehicles to different parts of Mumbai with, it's all loaded with water and bananas and packed food and theplas and, so many stuff we sent. Buns and everything,
Right.
Farsan, a lot of things we've been sending every day.
Okay.
So it's been really a wonderful effort by UNICEF and the entire team, I would say. And not a question asked, nobody was trying to say this is not right, that is not. At this point of time, no right and no wrong. It was just about doing it. That's it.
Right. Absolutely.
So basically, the Jeevan Rakh is a wonderful example of actually showcasing how a large number of NGOs can come together on a common platform. This is one major issue which also should concern everybody, that a lot of NGOs, including us, we work in silos basically. We are working in different pockets in our own way. There is no strength when you work in isolation, basically.
Right.
So everybody is doing very good job in their own pockets, basically. But collectively, when we come together, I think we become a very strong force.
Right.
And then there is a credibility in the voice. And this is what is the voice which we require to be discussed at the government level. I remember once one of the elected representatives asking me that, Nitin, you are coming and giving me this suggestion, but some other big NGOs come and giving me some other suggestion. Or NGOs come and giving me some other suggestion. What do we expect? For us, it is a challenge. So don't you have NGOs have a common platform? So my first reaction was, I told her, the challenges are manifold. That there are various political parties.
Right.
So why don't all political parties come together on a common platform to address the challenges? So she was also nonplussed. But then I realized that, we must have some common platform, a strong platform where we can, raise our concerns through that platform. Not only implementing, we should be implementing and helping the government. At the same time, we should be working very closely with the government, to bring about the changes which we want to see.
Right, absolutely.
And that cannot happen in isolation. That cannot happen with one Mr. Nitin Wadhwani or one UNICEF or one Tata Trust. UNICEF and Tata Trust are, of course, very, very big organizations. They work with the government. They implement a lot of projects. They do a lot of funding and other things. But we still need a lot of NGOs working at grassroots level, the implementing partners, to actually come up with a lot of solutions, and the solutions have to be implemented at the government level for it to be scaled and make it sustainable.
Right.
I always ask this question: what happens? Suppose I am driving the organization today, and what happens tomorrow if something happens to me? The whole program goes for a toss. Then it may not have the same type of drive or the type of strength, and the thing may not be. I hope somebody else comes and takes it up to a different level, but there's always this question mark, that when you're working at individual level, it's always a big question mark. So if we come collectively and we have a strategy to work with the government as a pool, as a collective of good like-minded NGOs, with a common program, like you have the minimum common program which the political parties talk about.
Right, yeah.
So we should have something of that sort, some NGOs working on health, some working on wash, some people working on nutrition. We should work closely with the government. We should ensure programs are delivered. Something of that sort. I mean, this is the way I look at it.
Absolutely.
So this Jeevannath, I think, is a very excellent initiative by UNICEF. Many NGOs participated, and I wish it is continued further even after this pandemic. This is just the beginning, I would say. I think they should build up on this platform and create a very nice, pool of good people working together for a common goal. And that is for improving the basic infrastructure support services in our country.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's a great thought, yeah.
Yes, please.
All right, sir. I think we had a very, very amazing session, and we had some really eye-opening conversations, and something that I'm pretty sure that when our listeners will listen to this conversation, it is going to help a lot of people to understand a lot of things and possibly, step out of that, because there are a lot of people in this world who want to do something, and unfortunately, something keeps holding them back. So I hope through your story, people get inspired and, finally just take that step and just go for it and just go ahead with it. And, in whichever way, in whichever capacity they can move ahead, I'm pretty sure this is going to help them out quite a lot. And
absolutely. I would just like to say one last point that I always say to my friends and people and others, if I can do it, anybody can do it. There's nothing very difficult. It is just the determination and the will and the passion. I am doing it for children. You may do it for somebody else. It could be for old people. It could be for pets. It could be for various causes are there in our country.
Right.
If you are passionate and concerned, if you express concern cannot be only in the mind and the heart. It has to get reflected.
So true.
We have to take steps in that direction to implement it and do our bit.
Absolutely.
So that's my message to everybody. I think anybody and everybody can do it. There's nothing very difficult for anybody if your heart is into it.
Yeah.
Here you need heart. We work with our hearts.
Right.
Anytime we just stop thinking, we just work with our hearts. Just do it. That's the punchline. Just do it. That's it. You don't ask questions that time.
Absolutely. And
so, thank you so much, Shruti, for having this chat. In fact, after a very long time, I opened up with so many things about my past.
I'm so glad that you opened all those chapters for us, and you were very candid, and I'm so thankful and so glad that we could have this conversation. And I'm so looking forward to the Instagram live session also, because I'm pretty sure that even that would be very candid, and we'll be touching all the more some new topics.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Shruti. Look forward to Sunday.
All right. Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Thank you, dear.
Thank you.
Bye.
Have a good evening.
Bye. Bye. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe.